All right. Okay, so as I said, my name is Suraj Taj, and Greg and I will talk about your O&M challenges. Now, one of the things that I wanted to point it out is that the users of Alstom power generation technologies are going through some tough times lately. And what Greg and I will do is we'll talk about your challenges and our comprehensive and competitive solutions for parts and services. They're designed to help you
I
reduce
tell
your
off my stuttering wasn't that bad. The guy before us did a whole lot worse. So.
and increase profits and optimize your total asset performance. That's the idea behind it, okay? And that's what we'll be talking about. Now, a little bit about myself. I have been working with Alstom Technologies for nearly 30 years. The first 25 years of my career, I worked for Alstom Power in different capacities. I've been in commissioning, in engineering, product development, customer service, business operations in several countries around the world. So I have an in-depth working knowledge of these, the design and the service life of this equipment. Now, fortunately, for the last 5 years, I have been sitting on the owner side of the table and carefully assessing their growing challenges in today's market and helping them optimize their technical and commercial performances of their assets. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the fact that it is becoming extremely difficult to make money and to protect your investment in the current power market, especially for the gas plants. And I have a deep sense of appreciation for you guys, for the owners and operators. So it begs a question though, why? Why is it so difficult for you to make money, especially when electricity is indispensable to our way of life? I mean, I think we all know this, that we can't live without electricity. So what is it that's making it so difficult for you to make money? So what we'll do is we'll talk about the evolving role of gas plants and how does that translate into the O&M challenges for the Alstom fleet, and where does ST Power Services and TRS come in with our competitive solutions, and what is our intention behind it, and how do we solve your issues? And then we'll get into the Q&A sessions. Okay. So the answer to the question that I just raised, the why is it so difficult? In my view, and what I've learned being on your side of the table is that there are two parts to this. The answer to this question has two parts. One of them is the external market, and that's the evolving energy market that we talk about. And in the evolving energy market, there are so many moving parts. And one of the things that has happened is that the fundamental role of the gas plants have changed from being a base load to more flexible load following cyclic operations. So you're no longer able to enjoy the PPA or the capacity payments in the capacity market. Those days are long gone. But in order for you to survive this changing market conditions, you have to be reliable, you have to be flexible, and you have to be competitive in generating your electricity, especially when the solar and wind have begun to set the marginal cost of electricity. Now, that's the other part of it, the whole equation that becomes very complicated, is that how can you compete with resources that have no fuel cost and they do not get penalized for being unreliable? We all know that wind and solar, they're unreliable, but they're starting to make the market rules now. So unfortunately, guys, we have little or no influence on the market conditions or the changing rules of the game. Now, so that's the external factor, right? But the other part of the answer is your asset performance. And that's an internal, inside your fence okay? And there is where I see a lot of the issues, which is you have a direct control over, and to a certain extent, I should say, all right? Now, your challenges are primarily in the area of aging technology and workforce, retiring workforce, okay? I've talked to many of you about your obsolescence issues, the control systems, the electrical systems. Many of the components that you operate today, they're aging. Even your gas turbines, your E and F class machines, or your base fleets, the 11s and the 11Ns. So they're aging, all right? Now, market pricings are changing, as we all know. You have to reduce your O&M cost to be profitable, all right? You have to be flexible and reliable for operations, and we talked about it. And we know that the influx of renewables is causing a lot of the heartburns, all right? But above all, the O&M cost per megawatt hour is rising. According to FERC, in a 20-year period from 1998 to 2018, the O&M cost has risen by 74% on a per megawatt hour basis, all right? Now, if the cost is rising and your revenue is limited because your capacity factors are down, all right, and you're only needed when the market demands you have to be flexible, then while the revenue is down, the cost is going up, something's got to give. So it means you have to find a way to reduce your cost, all right? And one of the things that I've learned being on your side of the table is that the access to a reliable and a competitive parts and service provider is becoming that much more challenging. And that impacts probably the most significant way in how to reduce your cost, all right? And this is particularly true for Alstom users for obvious reasons. I think majority of you, most of you have experienced it yourself, that there are times when it becomes very difficult to get parts on time, whether to be more competitive and have the right prices and whatnot, all right? So there are, what I did is on behalf of some of the customers that I dealt with, and I've spoken to many of you, I actually studied the global market for a viable option for the aftermarket service providers. Are there people, are there companies available that could actually do the things in more reliable fashion, more competitive way? And what I've learned is that there are several companies and several service providers out there, but none of them have a comprehensive solution for both parts and services until now. This is where SD Power Services and TRS Global have come together to provide you the type of solutions you need. And this is where we will be focusing on today. We're looking to do a complete 24/7 technical support for you, comprehensive parts and services, total asset performances, okay, GT lifecycle management, plant control system management. And the idea behind is to reduce your O&M cost so that you can become profitable, okay? So that's our focus. And this is why we come together to do what needs to be done, all right? And what our goal is that between my years of experience with this technology and Greg, and under the leadership of John Kirk, the CEO of TRS Global, we have the right marriage, so to speak, to give you the comprehensive solution both on the parts and services side with the O&M support and total asset management. So what I do on my side of the equation is that I focus on your full GT lifecycle, hot gas path part exchange scenarios, operations and maintenance issues, obsolescence management, total asset management of the plant in terms of how to extend the life of the parts, how to improve the operations, and how to improve your maintenance dollars and spend only when it's needed and increase the profitability of the fund. Meanwhile, Greg and John and the TRS team focus on developing the parts and meeting your needs for the parts requirements. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand this over to Greg to talk about TRS's capability. But we are here, and what we want to do is we want to actually listen to you and answer your questions today, and also talk about what we can do for you. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Greg. Greg, are you there?
Let me just finish checking a couple of boxes here. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Suraj, for the great kickoff and great start to our conversation. A little bit about me. I've been in the turbine maintenance domain for a little bit longer, about the same amount of time as Suraj. I started as a field engineer with GE a little over 30 years ago, but spent the bulk of my career with Calpine in various roles and responsibilities. So I have about 2/3 of my career in the as a customer, and have a multitude of experience with many different technologies, including Alstom. But enough about me. I want to explain a little bit about TRS. Now, we exist to provide turbine component repair, new parts manufacturing, and consulting services to our partner owners, operators, manufacturers, and service providers. But our services help our customers, as Suraj has mentioned, reduce downtime, life cycle cost, and risk while creating new opportunities. Next slide. We're focused on these technologies, so the GT8 through GT26, and we provide various solutions, including parts repair and refurbishment, new and refurbished parts. Some of our other partners or others in our network provide some additional engineering and technical support, as well as planned and unplanned inspections, outage planning, and management. We're focused on these technologies, and listed are the solutions we can either offer now or for some or all of these technologies. The Alliance Network will again provide some of the solutions, such as field service and some outage management solutions. Next slide. This shows a breakdown of some of the parts and O&M support and service offerings. Again, we either concurrently or intend in the future to supplement our current capabilities. This slide provides the when we are going to have certain capabilities. As you see, we formed the Alliance late last year in Q4. And we're currently working on developing 13D and 11N IP in terms of repair and some new parts manufacturing. We intend to continue executing the project through Q2, and then we should have our first sets of 13D and 11N parts, repaired parts, delivered to 2 different customers in this case. As you can see, we intend to further develop capabilities in the F-class space, so to speak, with GT24 as well as 26 opportunities in the upcoming year. We also want to develop capability in the 13E space. And you say, why the sequence? Why the order of capabilities? This is what our customers have requested us to focus on. However, if the need exists, is in the case of the GT24 technology, we can certainly develop specific repairs sooner than shown on this slide. This includes high temperature single crystal blade repairs, such as GT24 HPT1 blades, as we already repair single crystal blades for other power gen turbines and customers, OEMs, etc. Didn't want to go into a great amount of detail for about TRS. Those slides are a later part of this deck, but we wanted to have plenty of time to to open up the floor for any and all questions regarding any of our capabilities or the capabilities of the Alliance overall.
Yeah, great. Just to that, we will be taking a lot of the questions, and there is a few slides that in here which talks about our individual companies and what our capabilities are and what we do. But the idea is not to spend too much time on our capabilities and what we can do, and hopefully you will get this through the slide decks. But we really like to hear your questions and answer your questions and get into a more of a conversation that makes it a more interactive discussion. So it's your time, guys, and we're happy to answer your questions.
So if anybody wants to put questions into the chat or unmute yourself, now's the time to do that for Suraj and Greg.
Yeah, hello, this is Brian Vocal. So Suraj and Greg, talk a little bit about, one of the factors that are affecting the, owners such as ourselves is lifetime management. So, with regards to the ever-changing markets and so forth, we have assets that, we can operate in various modes. Talk about how you can help us with lifetime management type things.
Okay, so Greg, I'll take this question from Brian. So Brian, what we've been able to do, and I sitting on the owner side of the table, is that look at their changing operating model and to see, okay, how do we adjust the current O&M practices, which is essentially governed by the OEM recommendations in terms of the whether it's an hour-based maintenance. And what we do is we look at it to see, okay, does it really make sense in the current market to stick to that norm? And what we do is we evaluate based on the operational history, and we look at the parts that are in the machine, and we go through the hard gas path part exchange scenario, and we make a pragmatic approach to see, okay, do we need to change everything, or are there parts that are in a much better condition to last for another cycle, or possibly even extend the operation and beyond the hours that are required, so instead of say 24,000 EOH or 32,000 EOH, and we go beyond that based on the condition of the asset, all right, or the hot gas path parts. And so that way, what we do is we extend the maintenance cycle. We allow the machine to continue to run, but we don't do it blindly. What we do is we do a borescope, say every 4,000 hours, and we assess the parts. And then based on the condition of the parts, we then say, okay, it's released for another 4,000 hours of operation. And what it does is extends the maintenance cycle. So that's one approach. The other approach is that we look at the formula and said, okay, if the machine's not running base load, and if it's running more of a cyclic, so that means you have more starts. And every start, as you all know, and Brian, you know that it adds cost to your budget, because of every start has a multiplier. And we evaluate that does that multiplier really has the need for it, because the conventional thinking was that the multiplier is there because you want to eliminate certain stress of the starting and stopping of the cycle, and it's wear and tear of the components. But if you're not running as much as you would do, or if you're not cycling it every day, that start could potentially save a tremendous amount of money. And I know that GE has done that in the F-class unit, where the start factor has gone away. So there are multiple ways that we evaluate your operations and the equipment, and then we adjust the strategy around it so that we better manage the life cycle of the component and reduce the cost. Hope that answered part of your question, Brian.
Yes, it did. Thank you, Suraj.
There's a couple questions here in the chat. First is, are you also looking at 11D units?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Next question is, what's the development lead time for reverse engineering and production of a reasonably complex, hollow but not SX turbine vane like the GT11N?
Greg, I'll let come to you for the answer on that.
We typically can provide a solution or develop the IP in 4 to 6 months, and I say typically. There's a lot of other dependencies, the amount of work that we have in the shop, and as well as the equipment that we're actually using to perform work in the shop. So, but generally speaking, 4 to 6 months. And that's specific to the actual physical repair of the component. We say for some simple parts manufacturing, most likely won't be manufacturing complex parts such as the 11N vane that you mentioned. But as far as repair development, what we've experienced or what we've done in the past, I would say on average, it takes 4 to 6 months to complete the work, to be able to, have the routers in place, have all the QC procedures in place around the repair of this specific component.
Okay.
Suraj, Chris Hudson here. Can you speak or elaborate rather to the components that you can recondition today?
Today, okay, so we can recondition all of the hot gas path parts for the as Greg said, we're developing the repair or the reverse engineering the 11Ds and 13Ds. But if there is a need to look at your either 24 or 11 and 2s, we will have a look at it because we have the capabilities and we can work on those as well.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to point one other thing out is that while hot gas path parts and the repair of the structural components is obviously a major concern, but we're also focused on your obsolescence issues, whether it's control systems, whether it's electrical systems. Many of the plants with the older technologies, they're having difficulties with their control systems and with their AVRs and generator protections and what have you. And so we evaluate that as well. And we make a recommendation that is more pragmatic. And what I've learned over the course of my 5 years being on the owner's side of the table is that majority of the time, the response they get from the industry is that, okay, change the whole thing. Here's the latest and the greatest control system. But one of the question always becomes is that, well, if my GT or if my main asset is got another 10 years life left, perhaps, or 15 years, do I need to do a complete facelift and put $1 million, $2 million on an upgrade for a control system that may not see the full life? And what we do is we avoid that and we look at it from a practical standpoint that what needs to be changed. You don't need to worry about your IOs or your instrumentations or your all the interfaces from the field. what you do is you look at your critical components and to see which ones and that you could do with the replacement, So multiple ways of looking at it. So we've been paying attention and we've been solving those problems as well. So I wanted to just bring that to your attention that along with your hot gas bath parts and your structural components, we look at your electrical and the control systems as well.
Hey, Siraj, Chris Hudson here again. Can you speak to your experience with the control systems? Is that ex-OEM or is that contracted out with y'all managing that?
Right. So what we do is we obviously we were familiar with the Alstom. I was in the commissioning, so I have the P13s or the Advent and e-control and all of those systems. And what I do is I collaborate with Hughes Technical, Gary and his team, and we work in conjunction. So that's one part where they have a blue line that we could use that. I've also worked with Emerson's and they have started to do some of the DCS stuff as well. But on a more broader sense, we evaluate the overall the baseline of your current asset, all right, and then make the necessary adjustments, whether it means that the existing components can be repaired and you can increase your inventory, because it's at the end of the day, it's about risk management, right? And how best do you manage the risk of your control system failure so that it doesn't affect your availability and the reliability of your plant. And if there is a way that we could mitigate that risk, then we look at that as well. And then after that, we determine what would be the most optimum solution. And then we go from there.
Thank you, Siraj.